Whoops, LinkedIn says, okay, remove it. Remove, done, save. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the 10X Real Estate Warrior Nation, where we turn ordinary agents to extraordinary 10X Real Estate Warriors. Today, I am super excited to actually introduce to you one of my good friends and a long-time business partners, probably one of the longest business partners I have, is actually a guy who is a character altogether, but he's also one of the best in the industry, in the mortgage industry. His name is James Chu. He's the AVP over at US Bank. And, you know, when I think about what is his superpower, he's one of those guys where he doesn't need to pick up the phone, because really what his superpower is what I call entertainment marketing. So let's bring James in. Hopefully he's there, because all of a sudden his screen went black.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know where you went, dude. Hopefully James will come back to us here in a second. Yeah, I'm here. Let's try taking you out and bringing you back in. Hey, James, can you, let's do this. And even though we're live, everybody, hey, you know, we're live. That happens. James, try signing out and signing back in again. Because I think it's on your side, not on mine. Can you hear me? James? Hey, everybody, you know what? We're going to come back to you in a few minutes here. We're just going to try to get a little technical difficulty going on here. Let me try to get my my guest coming in. And it's all good. It's all part of the show, actually. Just take your go out and come back in. Sign out. Just sign out and sign back in. So anyway, hey, everybody, welcome back to the 10X Real Estate Warrior Nation. We actually have with us James Chu. I don't know what happened there. We had a little technical difficulty, but it's done. So we're excited. I'm back. So James Chu, first of all, give us a little background. How many years have you been in the business, James?
28 years.
28 years. So in 28 years in the mortgage business, so you owned the real estate office at one point, right?
Correct. Prior to that, I owned a real estate office. I know. Right. I know I look pretty young, but I've been in the business for quite some time.
You're young and skinny. Yeah, that young man has actually lost a tremendous amount of weight over the past 6 months or so. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. You know, I remember you telling me the story about you and Fernando, how you guys got started in sales and how that really kind of shaped how, you know, I always joke about it. I said, you know, he doesn't really need to pick up the phone, because he's a master at, you know, like I said, your superpower is, without question, is like the entertainment marketer. So how do you build a business based on the relationships you have? And, you know, I mean, you belong to a country club, right? And out of the country club, and you play golf 4 days a week in the summertime, but you're working probably 90% of that time when you're playing golf, right?
I don't really work doing golf, actually. Look, again, I think when networking, everything is about open honesty and be straightforward. And one of the things I've been taught right from very early in my career is never be afraid to tell people what you do, right? At the end of the day, you gotta be able to tell your friends, your acquaintances, what exactly you do for a living. Okay. At the end of the day, you know, I don't obligate anybody to do business with me. If they like me, they give me opportunity. I prove themselves, and that's one thing that I always try to do, is try to prove myself that I'm able to, perform my job to the best that I could for every single customers that come through me.
You know, it's always amazes me that it's inevitable whenever we go to your club, play golf, which is always a pleasure. one of the things about you, it's interesting is I never hear you say, hey, and even when somebody asks you directly, what do you do? You go, well, I'm in the banking industry, and at some point it'll come out in the conversation that like, what do you do? And I'm a mortgage lender. But what's interesting is I've been at the club with you and people come to you at the bar and say, hey, Jimmy, I need you to, my kid's buying a place, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. I need to talk to you when you get a chance. And, that's what they call, but that, a lot of the younger people in the industry think like, oh, that he's just lucky. I mean, how many years have you been cultivating that, those relationships and to get lucky? Like people say, oh my God, you sold my house in 3 hours. And I'm like, yeah, but it took my relationship with James 10 years so that when I said to him, this is a good deal, he doesn't even think about it because he trusts me, he knows me, and he cares about me. So he just actually goes and pulls the trigger. How long does it take somebody to really
create that? The most important thing. The word of mouth is the most important thing. I think the word of mouth is the most important thing because at the end of the day, you have to have other people in the club, other people that associate with the people that are interested, kind of give you a little support, little backing that you do the right job for people. At the end of the day, I built myself a pretty good reputation, especially in my community and my that we do the right thing by the customer. And again, people say, "Hey, James is the go-to guy when it comes to mortgages. Go to James." So that helped out tremendously. I don't really, over the years, I used to spend a lot of money for marketing. I used to spend a lot of money in terms of going out, prospecting, which I still do. Prospecting is important. I think prospecting and networking, you always have to be doing that. You always got to be out in the field. You have to let people know exactly what you do. What are you offering? Hey, when there's a topic that comes up, people are always asking. People are always interested. What's going on with interest rate? What's going on with the market? I'm the expert. I know exactly what the market is. So I try to share my expertise with the people that are interested, and I provide that information to them. As we go on the conversation, people get comfortable with what I'm saying to them, and they give me opportunity. And once I get that shot, I got to prove to them. So again, that's kind of where we are, where a lot of young people that comes in the business don't understand. They think that things will just come to them by itself. Never expect anything. At the end of the day, you got to work hard at it. You got to build a good reputation among yourself, and you got to do right by people. If you do right by people, the way I always look at it, it always will work out at the end. Everything always work out at the end. And at the end of the day, we try to do best by what we, and you got to have your knowledge. You better know, I'm in the mortgage industry. I sold real estate prior. You got to have your knowledge of your product. You got to have your knowledge exactly what the consumer. And most important thing is, believe it or not, in sales, the art of sales is listen to people. You got to be able to hear what they're saying. And you got to take that information and kind of help them and, provide them the information they're seeking. And listening to the customer is the most important. Finding the people's needs.
So let me ask you this. And on that note, and I actually was talking about you the other day. And we did some mentoring with your mortgage loan officers in your office, and it was the beginning of the year. And I still remember it was like January 6th, and you were coming through the conference room, and I said, let me have you talk for a second. And you're like, okay, and you sat down, and we had 8 or 10 loan officers in the room. And I remember you saying to them, we were talking about the numbers, and I said, you got to know your numbers. You got to have a business plan, and you got to know where your numbers are at all times. And James said, I'll never forget it. You said, it's January 6th. I already know I'm behind on my numbers. And they all went, for what? And I go, and you said, I could just tell that at this point in the month and looking at my pipeline that I'm not at my goal yet. And I'm not doing, I'm not where I need to be for this month, this quarter, or whatever it is. And knowing that and having a destination and having a chosen, a path. And I think the other thing is, that's interesting is whenever we talk, and I've said this to you recently, and I don't think everybody realizes it. For years, you would introduce me as one of the top agents in blah, blah, blah in Hudson County or whatever. And then when you change companies to one of these other brands, they had you change some language patterns, and you said, and we were at your golf course playing golf or something at an outing or whatever, and you introduced me and went, here's my business partner, my realtor business partner, Sean, who works in this market. And you know, what's funny is I could still remember you saying that day 15 years ago, because all of a sudden we became partners. We were no longer, it was no longer the mortgage guy and the real estate guy. And you know, you gave me whatever, I gave you whatever. It all of a sudden, you acknowledge it. You acknowledge that, hey, you know what? These guys are our partners in the business. And whether that was a sales pitch or whatever it was, it worked to the point where all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait a minute. He's like my partner. I wouldn't do that to my partner. I should do that to, what is the, what should people listen for to know that, hey, you know what? I need to get that person in front of James Chu or whoever for that matter.
Well, let's kind of go back a little bit, dissect on that partnership, right? At the end of the day, people that we work for, at the end of the day, human beings in terms of what we expect, if we give something, sometimes we like to get a little bit things back, right? At the end of the day, it's about the reciprocal, right? If Sean, if you keep referring me customers and I don't do anything to reciprocate to you, that's not a partnership, right? At the end of the day, we're in a circle right now. We're in a circle that we're going to make each other successful. I'm going to find customers and leads for you, and you're going to find customers and leads for me. And where a lot of the younger, salespeople that come in, they don't understand is it's about the relationship we build with each other. When I do great, you do great. When you do great, I do great. So we do treat this as a partnership, and this relationship you build with. It doesn't matter if it's a realtor, mortgage lender, or mortgage lender, financial planners. I get a lot of referrals from financial planners right now, okay, where rates are so low. They don't want their customers to relinquish the funds, so they're asking their customers the best execution is to mortgage and leverage up. So those are considered my partners. So when I do right by them, they also do right. And the bottom line is doing what's right to the consumer. What's the best for the consumer to get them to kind of benefit themselves? People finance, they're looking for the best rate, shop for the best rate. Look, I wouldn't be successful if I'm not being competitive, right? At the end of the day, you got to do what's right, be competitive. And, one thing I always believe in, the reason why I always work for big banks is I believe in volume. And in order for me to produce volume, I need to set goals. I know exactly where I'm at all stages. I know exactly every month when I start a week, I know what I want to produce, my goal. Some months, I see like January, going to be honest with you, I kind of took it easy in January. I worked really hard last year until December.
Sure.
January, first week of January, I went to Dominican Republic to play the golf outing. And third week of January, I decided to just take a week down in Florida to kind of decompress. I actually doubled my production in the month of January. Business was just coming in.
You went slower to go faster.
It's not being lucky. It's about, doing right. And one thing I always have is, number one, be very responsive. And one thing you always said that, if you call me with a customer, if I don't pick up the phone, that might be the last opportunity for you to call me with a customer. So
I'm going to touch on something
about me is I always pick up my phone.
I want to touch on something that's important for people to understand. Over the past 25 years that James and I have worked together, he's worked at numerous banks and numerous financial institutions. I've worked at numerous real estate companies. And back in the day, the thing was, what is my mortgage lender giving me? How much money are they giving me? How much are they paying for advertising? All this stuff. And I still remember this. And I remember telling James this story because I called him immediately after it. I was like, you know what? I just got accosted. I just got extorted. And I was at a big company, and they brought me in a room, and all of a sudden the guy who was in charge of the financial division, who was the chief financial officer, showed up by accident and said, "Hey, how you doing? By the way, we almost like it was like the CIA going, we know that you hang out with James Chu. You give him the business. How come you don't give us the business?" And I said, "Well, I tried giving you guys the business for 90 days. And quite honestly, you couldn't execute on anything we gave you. And my family and I have to eat." And they said, well, that's ridiculous. That can't be the real point. What is he giving you? And I said, you know what? He gives me absolutely. And they're like, but you give him a lot of business. He's got to be giving you something. And I said, you know what he gives me? He actually answers the phone. And he actually says to me, "Hey, you know what, Sean? that particular customer, we're not going to be able to help them because they're on the cusp. I don't want to tell you we can help them and then we can't. And I said, you know what? What he tells me is the truth. And he actually says, hey, if the deal's going to take 6 weeks, he'll say to me, hey, it's probably going to be 6, but I'm going to tell you 7 or 8 just to be safe. Or when a deal's going sideways, James will call me and say, hey, by the way, your customer sounds a little disgruntled. They're a little confused. Maybe you want to call them and kind of solidify that relationship again. And by the way, James and I will do that and vice versa. I'll say to James, hey, can you do me a favor and call this person because they're just a little uncomfortable with the numbers. And if you can, if you can help solidify that, we can put the deal together. So, I mean, that in itself, when people say, what do I get? Why not think about what you're giving first and then how you can actually make that relationship work?
Well, Sean, that's a value partnership, right? It's about trying to help each other, number one, and build a trust with the clientele that we have. And, one thing that we have served a lot of customers over the years, a lot of happy customers over the years. And, I'm proud to say that, and you're a great real estate agent. You do what's right. You talk to the customers. You're always there for them. And for me, that's what the partnership is all about. And, it's not about, per transaction. At the end of the day, there's a person there, right? There's a customer that's purchasing the biggest purchase of their life. I have a passion. I've been doing this for 28 years, and I still have a passion for this business. I started in real estate, went to mortgages. On the mortgage end of it, I'm still dealing. One of the things I love about this business is, I'm dealing with one of the biggest purchases of somebody's life, right? So for me, having that passion, having the love for the business, I don't think I'll ever retire. For me, I love this business so much. I'll just continue doing what I do and continue to serve my customers and do what I could do. And for those young real estate agents that come in, I can't stress enough. It is so important, okay, for people to stay on top of their customers and build that relationship with their customers and build it with any business partner they work with.
So I want to point something out. That being said, we actually worked together, and I still remember, we put together a couple of systems in place where it would help the loan reps to communicate. And I got to tell you, I've never seen you so animated and so upset because you're like, put away like the pen and the piece of paper. You guys are using like a hammer and a chisel. I'm giving you a laser to keep track of this stuff. And Sean's going to teach you how to make it work. All you have to do is apply it. And from that experience, what I took home was realtors and mortgage lenders are very similar in the respect that they want it done for them. They're not willing to do the DIY thing and do it themselves. They want to have somebody hand it to them. And I'm like, I'll give you a great example of this. One of our guests actually was doing an interview and he said, only 4% of our community will actually pick up the phone and actually call somebody. And I said, even to call their past customers or center of influence or their family and friends, and they're like, yep, only 4% is the statistic. And when you think about that number, what do you think the average, our industry, 15% survive, the other 85% fall out of the business in the first 5 years. And I'm sure the mortgage lender business, it's the same numbers or less. What do you think makes a guy like Drew McKenzie, who's one of your business partners, we're a long time fan of Drew. And by the way, happy birthday to his daughter today. I think it's today or yesterday. What do you think makes the difference between guys like you and Drew who have survived every storm, every hurricane, whatever the hell's going on? You guys are still like the last man standing.
Well, putting that base, right? So we build a great base. Each one of us have great business partners that we work with over the years, great referring partners. You could be realtors, financial planners. At any stage of the game, we always have transaction going. So that's kind of number one, level the playing field of the up and down, the roller coaster ride that a lot of new agents come in, that they suffer because, again, when a new loan officer, a new real estate agent come in, it's like feast or famine. 1 month they had a great month, the next month they don't have a good month. One of the things that I do and Drew and myself do is we handle tasks. It's all about the task. We focus on task. We do what we need to do. Drew was involved in a book, great book. Can't remember the name of the book, but I'll
I
send
can't
it to
remember.
you. So this way, yeah. So he says it right there. He focused on task, focused on
So give us an
doing what it,
example of a task. People say the task. I got to do the work. What are the tasks that as a loan officer?
pick up the phone, call, right? Call the business partner,
Right.
do a follow-up checkup, all right? Reaching out, Sean, how's your day? Anything I can help you with, right? Don't be afraid to ask for business. And I think those of us have been in business for a long time, we know we're not afraid to ask for business. We're always asking
No.
for business.
And you know
if
what?
you don't
It's
ask,
interesting.
you don't get.
I could tell you that matter of factly, for somebody who does not use the phone a lot in your business, because a lot of it you're doing it in different ways. You're one of the few lenders that'll call me and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, I haven't heard from you. We haven't got any real business from you guys. Just, I don't care if you send me loans. I just want to make sure you're okay."
Well,
Which is another,
again,
we do
that's part of being a
this,
partner, right? It's just making sure that your partner's okay at the end of the day. If you don't get in touch with each other. So again, creating those tasks, okay, creating those plans as part of your plan, part of your to-dos. And number one, we care about each other, right? We're friends.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I always want to check up on you. I want to get together with you to play golf, have a beer, enjoy yourself. At the end of the day, business is secondary. It will come by itself. At the end of the day, we're always going to have issues, always run into different situations. And look, we've been doing this long enough where, Sean, we might fall out of touch for the 30s, but all of a sudden we're talking to each other every day, right? So it's common.
It's funny. We talked about this in your meetings a couple of times where, we're not always pooping out freaking rainbows and rainbows and unicorns. There's been times when James and I are on the phone screaming at each other, like I got to pull over the car because I'm just so frustrated. And like the one day I walk in his office,
met, right?
Right. Well, like one day his eyes bloodshot. I go, "What the hell happened to you? Who punched you?" And he goes, "No, that's from screaming at you. I blew a blood vessel in my eye." So, understand that, partnerships are, whether it's your wife, your family, or whoever, it's not any different. I mean, sometimes you spend more time with your team than you do with your own family.
Correct.
I want to point something out on that note because I think it's, when you have we talked about it in your office and it really happened by accident, but we talked about a perfect 10. And one of the things we did with your staff was saying, "Hey, get 10 partners that will send you at least a deal every quarter." So that, and if you have 10 solid, what I call vendor partners, and whether they're financial planners, you just rattled them off, right? The financial planners, the accountants, the lawyers, divorce attorneys, regular attorneys, probate attorneys, people that are doing, realtors, partners, it doesn't have to all be realtor partners. But if you can get 10 solid partners, more than likely that group will spin off 2 deals a month. Just by autopilot, just because the pure nature of numbers is 20% do the work. So if you were to pick 10 perfect partners in your space, or you don't have to pick them. You can tell us, what is the makeup of your perfect 10? Is it all realtors? Is it past customers? Is it vendors?
It all depends on different time of the year. It depends on what the environment of the market, right? At the end of the day, one thing we cannot control. One thing that we can't control is the market, right? In a low interest environment, we know we have refinances going on. So financial planners are great referral sources, right? When the rates are a little bit higher, purchase market is what we focus on. So it really depends on what the market, and you have to, as an individual, you need to adapt to the different environment. So if you don't learn to adapt to different environments, you're not going to be able to kind of create level set of constantly being a top producer, constantly producing, doing the right production.
So tell me that again. You know what? I find that interesting because I would have never put those two together. Is when interest rates are going up, it's, the purchase market is more your market. And is that because people are trying to get in for the refinance?
No, because in an increased rate environment, you decrease the opportunity to refinance. So there's no refinances of the opportunity. So why would you focus on that when you know for a fact that you're going to be
So you got to go the other way.
that? You got to go the other way. So
And-
you got to adapt to different market. You have to adapt to what's going on with the marketplace.
So you have to have a balanced portfolio of lead solutions, lead sources,
Right.
if you will.
And that's constantly
Yep.
changing. Your perfect 10 is constantly changing based on the market, based on the situation. Now, doesn't mean that fall out my perfect 10, they could be 11, 12, 13, but I'm still going to keep in touch with everybody. At the end of the day, it's about the relationship you build. You don't forget about it. We focus on our perfect 10, but we don't forget about anything other than the perfect 10.
Right. In other words, and you know, it's important that, you know, we point out it's not an and/or world. It's an and world. It's an and world, not a or. Meaning that, like, just because I'm talking to James and I add another guy and I add an 11th guy to my list, the whole goal is to get those 10 guys to where they're constantly, you have a good relationship with them. And then you can add a number 11 and add a number 12. I think the challenge that most reps get caught up in, and whether they're real estate agents or mortgage reps or title reps or whatever, is, you know, they're not consistently calling through the list. So what happens is day one, they show up and they're feeling okay. They go 1 through 10, they call everybody. Next day they show up, they get in a fight with their spouse and they don't feel right. So they come in, they call 1 to 2. Then the next day they call 1, 2, 3. Then the next day they call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then all of a sudden they have a good day and they come in and they're like, their medications are going on. They got their coffee and everything. And they get to number 10 and number 10 goes, "Oh my God, I wish you would have called me yesterday. You know, I had a deal for you." But the problem is they don't consistently go 1 through 10 or have them on a rotation. And that's really where I think the disconnect is. And whether it's in the real estate business, for us, it's calling leads for the most part. And inevitably you're calling your past customers. There's nothing worse than driving down your block and pulling up and seeing the guy next to you, the guy's house next to you, with a different sign on the front lawn.
Sure.
It happens.
You know, so that's your competitive nature, right? At the end of the day, you got to also have a little competitive nature. You got to, you know, I hate to lose. I hate to lose the client to my competitors. But guess what? But you also put yourself up, because at the end of the day, competition is good, right? At the end of the day, keeps you on your toes, keep you sharp. And again,
that being said, when you're saying keep yourself on your toes, it's that came up recently today and yesterday with a conversation, and I wanted to ask you, because you're probably a master at it, is when you get sideways and because you not only deal with the customer, but you're also dealing with the pipeline, you're dealing with the management, the back end of your office, and that, you know, in the large banks, a lot of times you don't have a lot of control over that mess. How do you get your emotions back in line to get yourself out of a rut? Like, you know, they say if you're in a hole, stop digging. But once you stop digging, what do you do to re-engage yourself?
Focus on tasks, shift tasks, right? At the end of the day, I have 20 different tasks, right? If I'm finding myself just digging into a big hole in terms of dealing with operation, I start to focus on sales. Again, I can't control certain things, right? So you got to look for other tasks that you could focus on. And I know for a fact when I start focusing on sales, I'll win. So again,
right,
winning yourself, you have to kind of build that plan B, plan C, plan D, right? When I wake up, and one thing that you and I, you know, I think the fact that we are successful over the years, and one of the reasons we're successful over the years is we want to complete our task. I remember, you know, when I call you in the morning and all of a sudden interrupt you, you say, "Don't call me at that time." And I don't call you at that time. I know what time to call you, what time not to call you, right? And I know the best time to call you is, believe it or not, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, because you're fresh, you're good, you haven't gotten your call yet because it's too early to call your customer. So you got to kind of know your partners. But one thing that you and I have always done is we know when to accomplish our task.
You know, it's funny you say that. I talked to a good friend of mine, you know him, as Tom Spees. He's the sales manager over at Pulte Homes. And Tom worked for me for about 6 or 7 years. And matter of fact, I think I was with you. And I called him up on the way home from an outing or something. And it was like 9:30 at night. And you asked me something. I said, you know, I'll call Tom on the way home. And I got him on the phone, which is unusual. And he picked up the phone and he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "Sean Chalice." And he goes, "I got to pull the car over. I don't think the clock is working correctly in my car." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Do you know that in 9 years or 7 years, or whatever the hell it was that I worked for you, I've never talked to you past 7 o'clock at night?" He goes, "I'll talk to you at 4 a.m., but he goes, I have never talked to you at 7 o'clock at night or later." He goes, "You're in bed by 9." So,
Correct.
you know,
Correct.
so I'm going to wrap this up. I just want to point out, by the way, U.S. Bank was actually one of our silver sponsors. If you or somebody you know is thinking of buying, selling, investing, and they need to get a mortgage, whatever they need to do, you got to reach out to James and his team. I mean, he's got an amazing team of people. He operates in just about every state, correct? Is that
Yeah, we do
am I
50
right?
state lending. Yep. We're nationally
all 50
chartered, so
states.
we could do mortgages in
Right.
all 50 states. Yep.
Right. I'm going to give you his direct number. Don't be afraid to call it. He actually does pick up his phone, and he does text people. Even though he's an old fart, he doesn't know how to text. But the other than that, man, you're looking great. You're always sounding great. You're always bringing always bringing it, wealth and knowledge. And we do appreciate you as being our partners in the business. And nothing
Thank
short
you,
of,
Sean, for
man.
having me on.
Yep, James. I'm sure we're
Thank
going to have you on again.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, brother. We'll see you later.
You got it. Thank you. Take care. Have a good one.